Recording in progress.
Welcome into the latest episode of the Soccer Podcast. Your host, _G Warner. Tonight, we are going through the Champions League final. Every way you can think of, every way we're doing it, that is the plan. I want to make sure that those of you that are with me live, that you can get in here before this all starts. So let me retweet to make sure people know that we're on. And we're going to go through, going to try to improve upon a 69% nice year-to-date record on our best bets. What I do on all these podcasts, I cover every league across the top 5 European soccer leagues, take my favorite pick from each of the leagues, push them all together in a 1-minute video, and then I post it at the _G Warner on YouTube and on Instagram, and that's where you get to grade the episode. We're off to a really good start this season. It's about to be the end, unfortunately, but 50-22, 69% year-to-date. Go through how these teams are going to play in the Champions League final. Of course, I don't have any PSG gear, so holding out as an Inter shirt. And then again, Inter have been very supportive of this podcast for a lot of the season. They've certainly been responsible for a bunch of winners. So thank you, Inter. And let's get into it. So final match is going to be played, I believe, in Munich. Let me make sure that I'm right on that one. I don't think there's a huge advantage either way. Inter, especially disappointed after losing their grasp of the Serie A title. Yes, Allianz Arena, and it will be played in Munich, Germany. And so PSG on the other side, they did win their league a long time ago. Were able to rest or at least rotate, and I think that helped them in their pursuit of the Champions League title. Plus, they did get to end the league season a couple weeks before, or at least 1 weekend before Serie A really finished. So PSG, they did have the Coupe de France last weekend, whereas Inter Milan on Friday. PSG won the Coupe de France on Saturday in a pretty dominant victory over now relegated Stade de Reims, the Champagne boys, or the Champagne country, who ended up losing in a leg relegation playoff to Football Club de Metz. And so they will be back in Ligue 2. So I don't know how much to take from that one. PSG certainly have been able to balance their calendar much more easily than Inter. Been going to try to win every match to win not only Champions League, but also the Scudetto in Italy. The next part, I guess, is they were nothing to play for. They won, though. Napoli could also win, and we're at home with the team with nothing to play for. So they ended up rotating a fair amount. I think that's going to be a real setup for Inter. A little bit better rested, but I think everyone that can go for the Champions League final certainly will go for the trophy with the big ears. So I'm going to go through where this number has moved. Probably going to be a shorter podcast than the usual hour plus that we do in the top 5 European soccer leagues, but I guess let's get into it now. So we'll start quarter goal favorites right now with more juice, minus 114 at BetOnline. To Inter, only quarter goal dogs, minus 106. Totals 2.5. Juice pretty heavily to underwriting, minus 117. Coming back, minus 103 and over 2.5. And we've had some movement in the two lists, the trophy, basically including extra time, who will be the Champions League winners this season. And currently minus 167 are PSG. Inter Milan plus 136 coming back the other way. And I will also do an attempt at compare what we have here versus the initial line that I saw. Not huge movement, but some. And then we'll go through every step that we possibly can. And of course, I want to get this into your feeds as soon as possible. You can listen to it before we get closer to the kickoff tomorrow afternoon here in the United States, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. in God's country. Just kidding, but I live in Texas, so that's why. We'll start with the PSG side. So they didn't have to go all out for the Coupe de France. It was a pretty lopsided victory early. And like I said, I don't think there's any sort of rest advantages or anything like that at this point. Everyone that can go will go. I think it might be valuable to look at the starting lineup for PSG. Probably not going to be the same type of situation, of course, facing Inter as it would on a neutral site in a different country, as opposed to PSG playing French. And unfortunately, you could argue that one of the worst teams in France is the Stade de Reims were actually relegated. But I think there's more to it than just that. if I could load these lineups, I really hope I'm live okay right now. But goals scored by Bradley Barcola and Achraf Hakimi. Yeah, not a huge surprise that a right back is in the goal scoring list, but happens. And then I guess let me see if I can have Inter. So that might be a better thing to grab if anything would load on this current beautiful Spectrum internet. Thank you so much for your help in just ruining my life. But okay, well, that was an attempt, and I'm hoping this is recording okay, but we'll see. I think I guess without having lineups in front of me, I'll just speak to how PSG have gone here in Champions League. So PSG, I think, anointed by Castor Schmeichel's daddy, Peter Schmeichel, former goalkeeper of Manchester United and the Danish national team, that PSG were the best team across Europe. Felt like it was a little early to say that, especially with both Inter and Barcelona playing. I think PSG had moved on, or looking like they'd move on past Arsenal, a 1-0 road victory in the first leg. But might have been a Russian call. We'll see, of course. And now when I look at, I guess some things are loading, fortunately. Of course, we can't get that up, so that would be really nice because that was where I was trying to go. Anyway, PSG were undefeated for a very long time in Liga this season. Not a lot of great competition there, unfortunately. And I think that maybe taking the luster off PSG a little bit. Also with Kylian Mbappe, it feels like 10 years ago, moving in the summer of last year, about a year ago, with no returning any sort of fees or anything like that. But Kylian Mbappe, one of the best players, if not the best player in the world, actually somehow made the team better. And I think that's something that was noticeable. PSG, unfortunately, we saw that Real Madrid this season where Kylian Mbappe just doesn't defend, doesn't have any interest in defending, unlike when he plays for France, his national team. That seems to be different. But here, it just was a really, really great move, I guess, for PSG. They certainly lost out on a ton of contract value, squad value, all sort of things, and it seemed like Kylian Mbappe was at least the move that he made seemed to be like one of anger, which is bizarre. But PSG pretty much went young. I think that was a recommendation from Thierry Henry. At least he has really taken credit from that during the halftime or whatever, during I guess Champions League coverage in the States. And I think PSG did a lot. I think Thierry Henry wanted the young players to come from France, but ultimately came from other places. And I don't know that was exactly what Thierry Henry was arguing for, but he had mentioned that was kind of the building blocks. They went young, at least they went young in some way. And what we've seen is a pretty versatile. It doesn't seem to be like there's the Kylian Mbappe his own thing the whole time, playing as the road or wing. And I mean, they've got tons of talent, tons of young French talent as well. And to me, discussing this with a friend today who said he didn't rate the PSG defense, but I don't really have much to say negatively about Marquinhos, who's been there so long, tried true captain of the club, and has been awesome for Brazil for years and years and years. Maybe older, but I think can be done at center back. And then next to him is William Pacho, who's a really great signing from the German Bundesliga, I believe, Frankfurt, and plays for, I think, the Colombian national team or someone in South America, maybe Ecuador. And there's really good defense there. There's really good attacking. There's a lot of talent. And there's a strategy, ultimately, that I think will not change for this matchup and is probably what we will get on Saturday afternoon in the United States, is that Luis Enrique, former manager of Barcelona and the Spanish national team, he wants to possess the ball. That is what PSG look to do, is they want to have control. It protects the defense, which is right. You could say that there's some limitations back there. I think there are in every defense, ultimately, especially because it seems to me the offensive players are the more valued ones, the price remarks, at least. But I think it really, what PSG wants to do is have the ball and to force it down Inter Milan's throat and just sit in their own half. It worked for Inter against a pretty porous Barcelona defense, high line, which you probably see from PSG as well. They also need to employ because they're so far off the pitch. But I think we saw Inter just, I mean, Mark Thuram mentioned it after one of the matches, I think the first leg, where it's so deep that even when we won the ball, there's a lot of Barcelona pressure, which maybe PSG will be the same. But we still have so far to run, even when we got the ball near set, that made it, even a counterattack less effective. And I think that's what to do. I think the big question is can we break out of that? We still defend really well throughout Champions League. That Inter I'm talking about didn't give up a goal for a very, very long time, and ultimately kept clean sheet after clean sheet after clean sheet, and that's great for unders, and it certainly made me that way. But they have a much tougher run. I mean, everyone is difficult. But having to get through Barcelona, having to get through Bayern Munich as well, with the potential title match in their home stadium. Not that Bayern needed more momentum, but it took a lot for Inter to get here. And I wonder if that really impacted who they really could be in Serie A. Really late penalty conceded, I think, stoppage from Pedro or Pedro of Lazio. That certainly changed things. If we won that match instead of drawing late, then they have the lead heading into the final match day in Italy in Serie A, play for Veto, and they might play their better players, but can't seem to load the lineup from the Coupe de France. I'll just do Inter. I'll skip to Inter now. So they had a really tough run. They played defensively. They've shown they can do that. In the last or final match day on the road at Como, right across from the lake, Matty Remy started with Zalewski and Correa, like almost all rotated back for Inter. Carlos Augusto, left wing back, potential starter for Saturday, played left center back. Federico Di Marco, I think, is probably the best creator at left back maybe in the world. He started, and then Aslan in the middle of Chelsea, who I expect to start, penalty kick taker. If you're looking for any type of goal scorers or just any goal scorer, I think Hakan Çalhanoğlu, the Turk, certainly won't look at, because he's a penalty kick taker. Been in the stadium where he had a penalty kick at home against Salzburg, I believe, Salzburg. And seventh right started in the middle, Jan Bisek on the right center back, Matteo Damian on the right as a wing back. I don't necessarily want this is going to look like. That's generally why I wait to see them until I pick that. We should see a very, very different line of sides. Maybe Summer in goal, DeMarco at left back, and Hakan Çalhanoğlu in the middle. I would expect, after seeing Dumfries play, Jeremy Barella, I mean, there's going to be, I think, plenty of talent. We didn't see Marcus Thuram or Lautaro Martinez in the final match, but needed that Jornata, and I expect they start. And I think the team looks a lot different with Henrik Mkhitaryan coming in as well as potential. Hey, Scott, so thanks for joining live. Let me see if I get your comment up here. Hey, we just got your pick on. Yeah, so I'm still trying to, and I was going to use this podcast to come up with ultimate best bet end of show. Thanks for coming in, and thanks for the adjustment on my name. It's all good. So my plan was to get through this podcast, and then I was going to update my picks package on pregames that you knew who the favorite of the bet was. 1,400 is just time here in the United States of when the match is kicking off. But thanks for coming in. Of course, if you want to leave a 5-star review, subscribe, whatever you are, appreciate that too. And plenty of content coming the rest of the season. Club World Cup stuff should be here on the Bet and Pitch at the Real_G Warner YouTube. Plus, I'm trying to get my baseball co-host back, and we'll see if we can make that happen. No worries. Oh, oops, sorry. Thanks. All good. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate seeing you here, and hit that subscribe button if you're here. So back to their squad. I expect to be very different than the last match day, and I think that's going to be a really good thing for Inter, because they're going to need every piece that they can, because they're going to, I think, be stuck in their own end, having to counterattack down an entire pitch. And that's going to be really difficult for them to score goals. But it's possible. We saw that against Barcelona. We saw set pieces, which I don't know that were a huge problem for Barcelona this year. I mean, that's probably a very easy way for a lot of the weaker teams in Spain to score, because there's just so much they have to do to leave their own end. A stellar club like Inter with so many stars, if they struggle to do it, of course, the rest of Spain would. But I think there's always some value in set pieces. We've seen plenty of teams across Europe that really score goals primarily or only from set pieces. I feel like Brentford and the English Premier League are one of those clubs. But I think at this point, Inter are going to defend and they're going to be forced into their own end. And I think that probably makes sense why PSG are a favorite, quarter goal favorite as we speak. But I also wonder where this number might move. So that's probably what we'll move next to in terms of movement. And I'll first start with to lift the trophy odds, or I guess the champions. So PSG currently minus 167, so $167 US that will win you 100. That has changed about 7% of an increase. In other words, the favorite has been bet about 7% higher from an initial May 19th. I saw it's 155 on PSG at BetOnline for all these lines from them. He started plus 30 plus 136, and a huge climb, only about 4.5% or so. But clearly, PSG expects to win. And now talk about the spread. So Inter initially open quarter underdog minus 112. It's down to minus 106. We've seen it at highs minus 122, and I thought this one would drop down to pick them. Lows minus 105. So we're about the kind of the low for where the price is. Currently trending upwards a little bit from previous minus 105 I logged, but not a huge difference. And I think there's a lot of questions for me on potentially where this number will head. Usually favorites are bet. There's usually, especially in continental play, a bias toward the UK markets, UK teams from England, Scotland, all those sort of things. Not a lot of Scots playing in Champions League, not at this level, but this, I guess, late in the competition. But we did see Rangers go a pretty long way, not too far, or not too long ago in Europa League. It doesn't really apply here. I think Inter are probably the more popular team, certainly around long before, have won Champions League. PSG have not. I think the PSG name is emerged one of the stronger out there, and there's plenty of clear broadcasters that have called PSG the best club in the world during this competition. I don't know necessarily I've agreed with that. That I don't think they have the talent for it, but they have been working. They've got a lot of young players who are really talented, and Barcola, one of the least known studs in this world, and there's plenty of other great players at PSG as well. In terms of, yes, the total as well, I don't think I touched on that yet. It initially opened as a minus 120 for the half. 117 saw as 109 others. So it seems to me a fair amount of PG money has come in lately, and also over money. Then it kind of switched. The under hit pretty hard. PG money has come in, and I think it's probably the direction that I expect this one to go. Though I think for anyone looking to back into, I think you probably want to wait and see if you can get a half of a goal before kickoff. And if you see that Inter are getting bet all of a sudden very heavily to that minus 122 registered, minus 120, that might be the buy point, because I think if you're backing the underdog, you certainly want to get that ability to profit on this match going extra time. I don't think Champions League finals often do that. Certainly could have last season if Borussia Dortmund had any sort of ability to finish. I think they just kept hitting posts. That would seem to be the Krug thing. Real Madrid, I don't think had any business winning last season, but that seems to happen. Certainly, Inter, I thought, played a better game 2 seasons ago, and really covered as a 1.25 goal underdog with that, I guess, 1 goal from Rodri. To that end, I expect this to be a pretty low-scoring game, as most finals seem to be. But PSG, I think, are probably deserved favorite, a quarter goal favorite, because they're going to possess the ball a lot more. Big question is can they get down Inter? And there's plenty of value on that quarter of a goal, because if you go to extra time, you are a half winner. If you win regulation with the whole thing, PSG will have to beat you in regulation for any Inter bet. And I think that's just a tough thing to do on a neutral site. I think so. I usually give a quarter of a goal favorite for any home environment. I don't give any here straight down zeros each way, no options through the spread. And currently, I think PSG are 3-8. I think there's some value getting half of a goal on Inter. And also waiting to see if that happens or that comes. I don't know necessarily that we'll see that. But until then, I'll certainly be watching and looking essentially back. Total thing we see, like I said previously, it's going to be very limited score goals. Likely, and PSG are saying forward possible. Of course, a lot of great players, set pieces, mistakes, red cards, penalties, all those sort of things. But we've also seen the UEFA, I think, the take on penalty kicks is they try to give as few as possible. So expect that there probably will be some reviews and potential penalty kicks, but we're not in Spain, thankfully, as those are most penalty hungry league, I think, in the world, probably ever, hopefully never again. I think in UEFA we will see a higher level of guilt required to overturn something for VAR to get involved with a penalty. But we've seen some big mistakes and things like the Manchester United Athletic Club semifinal. That still puzzled by that decision to give a red card and really just kill the game and a first leg, the second leg. But there could be a lot of eyeballs in this one, and so let's hope that the referees make the right calls. Not really a believer in it, but we'll see. In terms of where the total is to go, I don't see a huge difference. I've been kind of selling some of these totals, playing under 2.25. I felt like under 2.5 and it's pretty juiced. So I'm less concerned about that move. Certainly under. I think under quarter would be a fine bet. Probably want to get that before it gets to 2. But I imagine the amount of over bets that come in on this sport, I can't imagine it's going to occur. I think the inter side is my biggest interest right now for of course, against spread. Total certainly underlean. And I do some value in Inter with the trophy. The problem is I just don't think we have a lot of the ball in the field. That's going to be really hard to overcome. PSG going to be tons of pressure. I think Inter are equipped to sustain it. And I think what you're going to do to try to, I think, thwart the pace of PSG is in their own end and make it so there's a lot of people around that can potentially clog the zone and limit creativity. I don't know if there's anything more really to cover. See if there are any more questions in here. Scott, thanks for coming. I appreciate you coming through with something here. Your comment from earlier. So here, I'll, I guess, go through maybe some stuff. The F1 podcast on this Bet in the Pitch podcast network, Bet in the Pitch and podcast on Spotify. Also, on YouTube. If you want some info on the Catalonian or the Spanish Grand Prix for this weekend, we're doing F1 through the rest of the year. So thanks for coming in and check that out if you're potentially interested, or maybe you saw Drive to Survive or something like that and you're interested there. Going, but thank you to all the Patreon supporters who've been with me for a really good month of Major League Baseball. Trying to close out May strong, and we're entering to over 21 units on Major League Baseball just this month of May. So that's kind of my goal for the season. So it's an awesome runs this month, trying to get that going into June. And of course, we're trying to do more, probably Club World Cup, inaugural United States-based. We'll see about what the teams look like, and there's a lot, of course, to uncover there. But I think that'll also be helpful for someone like me who pays pretty close attention to the European Soccer League. I'm not sure if anyone pays more attention. If they do, send them my way. I'd love to have a guest host on this podcast just once. I think it's time to get into the ultimate best bet, and I think it's time for me to cut a reel. So I'm going to put this 1-minute video on Apple Podcast and the full episode on Apple Podcast and on Spotify. But the 1-minute video at the Real G Warner on YouTube and on Instagram. And it's time to, I guess, flaunt the record and try to grow it a little bit that much further to see if we can get a little bit bigger. I would try to beat that for next season. It's the Real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. It's the ultimate best bet from the Champions League final episode. 50 and 22, 69%. Nice year to date. And my favorite picks from the Champions League final, they're the Inter side that I like. See me in the shirt. Also like under 2.5. Trying to grow my Patreon subscribership, patreon.com/Real_G Warner. If you're with me the month of May, you made a ton of money on baseball and really good close soccer season as well. But we're going to try to keep that going as much as we can over the summer. Check out more on this episode and on this podcast feed for all of the Copa, or I guess the Club World Cup this summer. But for the ultimate best bet in this episode, we're going to go with PSG and Inter under 2.5 goals. I think we see PSG dominate possession. Inter have to be in their own end, trying to defend and limit the pace to deal with PSG. think I like that more than the Inter side. So grab Inter PSG under 2.5 goals, and we will be. I don't think I'm gonna go live tomorrow. There's one thing, and I'm gonna try to go for the game here in Dallas. If anyone's around, feel free to buy me a beer, or maybe you can share some rats. Any social media platform, and everyone has a great close season. Hope it's a good bar to get involved, but we'll see what happens with that. Let's go make some money.
Recording stop.